Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Board of Supervisors work session for the purpose of discussing the proposed camp security park master plan. So, Mark, turn it over to you.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm going to turn it over to our consultants. This project, master plan project, has been ongoing for several months with a steering committee. We had a few public meetings where we received a lot of public input in person at those meetings, plus a lot of input through brandy surveys that people spoke. With all that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Garrett, or turn it over to Brandy, and Brandy will introduce the next step.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We are incredibly proud to present to you the culmination of over a year of dedicated work on this master plan. A master plan is more than just a blueprint, but it's a comprehensive, long-range strategic framework that guides future development, management, and the use of property. For camp security, this document is designed to preserve its significant history, environmental features, while creating sustainable, equitable, and exciting recreational and educational opportunities for the residents for decades to come. We'd like to thank the study committee, all of those who attended our public meetings and workshops, the township manager, Mark, Mr. Bob Cox for being a part of it. We did a lot of communication and outreach because we wanted to ensure that this plan authentically reflects the diverse needs and aspirations of our community. So introducing our expert consultants to lead this critical effort, we partnered with two very distinguished professionals in the field of park planning. First, I'd like to introduce Mr. Sean Garrigan, a PA registered landscape architect and principal of Strongberg, Garrigan and Associates. Sean and his firm have a historic background in creating and enduring public spaces, consistently earning accolades for design excellence and innovation. Regenerative projects that harmonize the environment and nature. Sean's career is marked by a commitment to delivering master plans that are not only vision-driven, but practically implementable and fiscally responsible. SGA is known across the region for its award-winning approaches in integrating cultural heritage and sustainable design. Joining him is also Ms. Ann Toole, principal of Toole Recreation. Ann is a certified park and recreation professional and a national leader in recreation planning. Her accolades include prestigious American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration Award for outstanding professional work, and Ann has been instrumental in planning the development of over 1,000 projects across 14 states and the District of Columbia. Her deep experience with her time with the National Park Service to leading her own firm focuses on building long-term capacity for parks to thrive. We're confident that combined with the vision of these two firms, informed by our community's voice, has truly presented an exceptional plan. So here they are to present.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight, following up on what Brandy mentioned about the process. I think the draft report that we've provided for your review tried to encapsulate all of the input that the community has provided to us, and there's a lot of interest in this park, as well as a lot of different interest groups related to different aspects, which you're going to hear about today. I think one of the big takeaways that you'll hear through the work that we're going to present is just the magnitude of the site and how much the community didn't really realize how big the site is and what a unique opportunity it really represents for the township. So the master plan project was partially funded by a Pennsylvania Department of Community and Natural Resources grant focused on developing the master plan. And there's a kind of specified process that we followed when we assembled this. There is a certain level of flexibility in that process to meet the individual needs of each community as you develop a master plan. And the master plan really is, it's a vision and a roadmap for how you can achieve that vision, with the understanding that over time things will change, and as pieces of the master plan get implemented, there will be a need to go back and reassess. But really what we were tasked to do was identify a kind of potential desire vision for up to maybe the next 20 years, and then kind of work incrementally of like how step by step might the township achieve that vision. I think an important part of any park master plan is ensuring that whatever happens in a park that you're expanding or introducing into the township, that it works and complements your overall parks and recreation system. Brandy was phenomenal in the sense of, helping us put this project in the context. And your recently adopted comprehensive plan for the township overall makes a recommendation to also update your township-wide Parks, Rec, and Open Space plan. And that's an important consideration, that the work that we've done will fit into that. So, I think as we go through the elements that we're going to present to you tonight, and if you've had the ability to read through the entire report, there's a lot of information in here. The key thing is what we tried to focus on especially is where do you go from where you are today, and how step by step might you be able to do things to advance through that to that vision, understanding that there's a lot of factors that will come into play, not the least of which is obviously the capital budgeting and the kind of fiscal considerations through that process. And then finally, the master plan is a guidance and a sort of, it truly is a roadmap, because as the plan hopefully gets implemented, you'll need to go back and you'll be presented potentially with new ideas and new opportunities that weren't anticipated at the time this master plan was developed. And the master plan sets some guidelines for how to respond to those conditions. So, reiterating the level of community engagement that was incorporated into the project, we realized very early on that the history of the site was kind of like there were a core group of people who knew an immense amount about the history of camp security, and many of them are here tonight, being the advocates to just preserve the land and not have it be developed in some other way for houses or whatever. And the ongoing archaeology that's been happening on the site is continuing to identify the specifics of the history and put more clarity to that. So we prepared a brochure that was just a basic set of information, so everybody was kind of operating under the same level of information about why the site was significant, especially from the historic standpoint, and frankly, just what is the site, and we'll show some graphics helping to define that this evening. We had two major design workshops down at the end of the hall in this building. We had quite a significant turnout. The first one was more of a breakout idea generating format. The second workshop that was held took all that information and a lot of other information we gathered, including through the online citizen survey I'll talk about in a minute, and presented some options with kind of like different components, and the community was asked to kind of provide feedback on what they liked and disliked, and what they thought worked and didn't, and all that information was taken back, vetted through the committee, and is represented in our recommendations in the master plan. I have to applaud the township on doing lawn signs. With all the technology and everything, sometimes low tech really is effective, and we heard from quite a few people that they actually found out about the meeting from the lawn signs. So a lot of lawn signs went out. And then I think one of the things that's unique with our approach, specifically with Ann's firm, the online citizen survey, and I don't know if you were able to see it, we had an overwhelming response with over 770 folks taking that survey. It's a really interesting and effective tool because it's very engaging and it gets people thinking about not just I like this, I don't like that. It was more like if you had, the ability to kind of shape this with a certain amount of resources, how might you do that? And then we did get some additional online responses back from the alternatives that were presented. So from all of that information, there were a few key things that we kind of synthesized it down to. And I think, not surprisingly, there was a strong emphasis to prioritize the historic resources of the site and the ongoing investigation work. I think one of the things that's really unique about the potential of this park as a public facility, both for recreation and for education, is the fact that there is ongoing archaeology planned for the site, and that sheer act is a very interesting, thing that the community wants to, see and potentially experience. And that's especially important because at one level there isn't an enormous amount of things to see. It isn't like going out and seeing a lot of buildings or things, but there's a really important story to tell. The other piece of this is overwhelmingly the community just wants to be able to get on the site and safely walk around and have trails and kind of experience the natural aspect of the site. And preserving and enhancing that open space character is extremely important. So that idea of the natural environment and the fact that this site is in a natural state to some extent is an important piece. And then not consistent with our experience in working with practically every community, there's concerns about access and safety and those kinds of things. And we received a lot of, detail about where, if you put a access drive here or there, or traffic concerns and sight lines and all those kinds of things, which we responded to and identified in the document. And then I think finally, it's, the programming and the idea that the park is a setting for a lot of other things that can happen that kind of, add another layer of activity to the park experience is a really important one. Ann, do you want to add anything to this?
I think the figures
You gotta go to Mike.
sorry. The figures that you saw on the last slide of community engagement says a lot about how you are with the public and how important it is to hear from the public. Brandy did a great job in promoting this, as did the Friends of Camp Security. So as decision makers, knowing how engaged your community should play a big part in your decision making. It's a real tribute to the openness of this government.
So from all that work, these three kind of themes were identified as our guiding principles as we developed the master plan. And history and culture being the first and foremost because of the historic significance of the site, and then weaving in the ecology and the environment piece, which is, I think societally a growing aspect of what people are craving as part of their recreation time that they have to spend. And then the healthy living and activity is, because of the scale of the site, it does represent an opportunity to add a lot to your park system, especially in the more on the passive side of just, trails, an opportunity to kind of get out and be in nature. So this graphic makes the site really pop out in the context, so you can see what is owned by the township. There are a few adjacent properties that are part of sewer easements and things, but this was the property that was identified as part of the master planning effort. Down at the lower part of the slide is the 11 acres that exists today as Camp Security Park. but when you take it all together, it's 173 acres. So it's really a significant piece of land. And if you haven't had the chance to just go out and walk the site, when you're up in the upper fields, the vistas and views of the valley are really, quite spectacular. You can also see, and I'll go to the next slide, where it says Weiss Lower Field. Oops, I want to go backwards. That sort of open patch, that's where much of the most recent archaeology has been taking place with the work that Friends of Camp Security has been doing. And, we incorporated this idea that investigations will be happening on the site, especially in certain areas where there's a strong sense of where key aspects of the original camp were located. So the document goes through how the land was assembled. If you weren't familiar, it is important because DCNR money was also utilized in part to acquire these properties, and there are some stipulations about how the land can be used. The most important factor there is it needs to be publicly accessible and available for recreation. And so that became part of the guidance of how do you move forward with achieving that, and to what level of recreation, investment, and amenities do you add to the site? So these are a couple views we took of the park with our drone. At the lower Weiss Lower Field on the right, you can see some of the area that was where some archaeology took place. You can also see the former Schultz farmstead that is located in the middle of the park that is not owned by the township. That's a very important consideration, understanding that there is private property that is surrounded on three sides, actually four sides really, but for the access drive. And we took that into consideration. It is also important as a set of historic objects because the farmstead was there at the time that the camp was being utilized. So it's actually the physical thing that you can see that was present at the time. I think it also illustrates the vegetation, meaning the woody kind of forests and wooded hedgerows really do create these rooms within the park that became part of the vocabulary that we use to respond of things like buffering sight lines and separating activities and things, and especially dealing with concerns of the adjacent property owners, as you'll see. So just a little bit more on the archaeological piece. We did dig in quite a bit, no pun intended, into the the history of where they were doing archaeology and where they're planning to do more archaeology. Friends of Camp Security have been fortunate to get more funding to continue to do that work. And I think they're on the precipice of really identifying a significant amount of the stockade, which would be, fantastic, and becomes, really a key component of telling the story that occurred there at the time. So, you want to?
Sure. This is big. It's internationally significant. So what we're recommending is that we start small. And no matter what we do, every little success will breed more success and more support. So what we're recommending is that anything that you do moving forward be manageable, practical, implementable. And what we have come up with is a series of recommendations that's layered in partnerships. You can't do this alone. It really depends on a lot of people being involved. And to date, you have that. So it's spurring that kind of energy going forward. We're recommending that your staff, their support is really key, and that partnerships especially with the Friends of Camp Security, are critical. What we think in getting this done is that you have to keep this momentum going. We have a lot of momentum right now, and building on that is really key. As an example, we have another project where we did a master plan about 8 years ago, and that county actually has the same master plan underway because they did nothing with the recommendations that we made Their spending went from 80,000 to 150,000, so they're spending several hundred thousand just doing planning, when that money could have been allocated in a better way, serving the public, had they kept going with the momentum and with the recommendations that we have. So what we're recommending is start small, test as you go, learn from what you find out, and take the next steps. So we do have recommendations for your first year of plan adoption to keep all of the partnerships engaged, support your staff, and support you as elected officials in taking great pride in something that's important to our country and internationally significant.
So in that sort of spirit of kind of starting small, and we were using the term a light touch on the site, our recommendations were to begin to open up more of that larger tract of land to public access in a safe and kind of visitor-ready experience. And I'm going to try this arrow and see how this goes. Aha. So this up here is your existing camp security, and the newly paved parking lot and the entrance off of Eastern Boulevard now in both directions is a great first start to make the site more accessible. We do actually, in the master plan, make recommendations to make that park even more user-friendly with amenities. But the key thing there is to create a trail that would run parallel to the creek. Oh, there we go. It doesn't. Yeah, so the yellow line, I'm going to do this verbally. The yellow line runs along the creek and then up above the West lower field and the Row lower field. And then the big other component of that is to create a second entrance that also would be a terminus, depending on which way you started, off of Locust Grove Road. So the idea there is to start with a modest-sized parking lot with an access point, and essentially create a safe way to navigate through the park, and not have it be a situation where you have to go way in and then turn around and come out potentially. Plus, I think the conclusion we came to is, especially for events associated with the historic interpretation piece, when you're having archaeology or you're having school groups or those types of groups come out, you want to have the ability to get much closer to the areas of greatest historic significance. So having that second parking lot is important. We do list in what we're calling the baseline park improvements, and there's a corresponding, kind of itemized capital list in the further back in the plan document for a lot of other amenities that get hung onto this framework. The other key thing, and we have a couple of images that sort of pop it out explicitly, is to focus on the landscape aspect. There's a lot of dead trees. There's been, especially because of emerald ash borer, there's been a lot of mature trees that have died on the site. So there's some, work associated with the existing woodland areas. And then especially dealing with starting to buffer the areas along portions of the property that abut adjacent property owners, and to create a robust, deep, dense, ultimately planted area to distinguish that what is public and what is private, and also create a kind of physical barrier there as well, which we talk about in the plan. And the fact of the matter is, there's no better time to plant a tree when you want it than 10 years ago was great, but tomorrow is about as the next best thing. So that's why we always identify kind of strategic vegetation improvements early on. Then there are other elements that we identified that came out of our, all of the discourse with the different groups that we met with, and the public and the study committee, which is, kind of building out a more robust trail network that can happen incrementally over time. There's a key element that we're calling kind of the interpretive walkway, which is that kind of brown zigzaggy line, which actually relates to the geometry of Saratoga and Yorktown. So there's this sort of relationship of how that gets developed as a concept that terminates at a vista point that overlooks the area where the archaeology is going right now, where we believe the stockade was located. All of that's going to take time to work through the design and then ultimately build out. And then there's other park amenities that are included as the site, gets kind of more kind of refined, and other things get added to it with additional play areas and overlooks and pavilions and comfort facilities, i.e. restrooms, and those kinds of things, all of which can be done in various phases. And that's why in our capital plan, we call them packages, and not like you have to, there's certain things that we're recommending. You obviously have to build a parking area and have circulation, but these things can be added over time based on priorities at any particular moment and how they align with available resources. So this rendering we put together also kind of encapsulates a lot of what we have heard from the community, that they want to kind of just come and have places that you can kind of experience the nature, learn about the site. They're kind of moments and places, destinations within the landscape. I mean, this would be at the end of that interpretive walkway overlooking the field where the stockade is located. There could be interpretive panels and things there, so you could have school groups and those kinds of things, experience the site. So just a few key pieces here. We did break out the trails and the access and the different elements of what would be a walking path, where might there be a connection to the neighborhood only as a pedestrian connection, what would serve as vehicular circulation. And we try to keep vehicles out of this park as much as possible. And then ensuring that there's safe access for the township for maintenance and, if any kind of emergency happened. And then we talk about, utilities and things that would need on a very limited basis to serve facilities. This diagram covers the landscape approach, and again, it's emphasizing especially buffering private property that's adjacent to the park area. Again, starting soon with this is, would help in both from the standpoint of, from the property owner, buffered to any activity that might ultimately happen inside the park, but vice versa. If you're in the park, part of the idea is to be immersed in kind of a historic, not in a neighborhood experience. So like visually buffering the property lines also helps for the park experience as well. There's also a lot of really interesting habitats. There's some wetlands areas and some wet meadows and things, and from an ecological standpoint, those are really important for the watershed environmental quality, which the community is also very interested in. So we focused on those aspects as well. Ann.
So we provided a clear roadmap for operations management and programming. One of the really big deals about this is that this site will more than double your park system, so that you need to be in a state of readiness to undertake such, not only the size of this, but all the aspects of it, how critically important it is. So in year one, we're recommending that you do undertake a park rec and open space plan, and that you apply for some grant money that has very little match to it to figure out roles, responsibilities, who's doing what when, so that you keep that momentum going. So the visible early successes would be forming an advisory committee to an alliance of partners to help you shepherd this through. There's a lot of people interested in this at the local, county, regional, and state level. So tapping that in the first year will be really important. So the operational plan is that you build upon the existing staff that you have. that the Friends of Camp Security develop a legacy plan and that will keep the Friends of Camp Security going. And that's the study that we recommend has some grant support for it. And that the Friends of Camp Security continue their work to develop a strategic plan. We worked with your maintenance people to figure out what kind of staffing will be needed for a park system that's about to double in size and add historical and natural components. Right now, you're oriented towards active recreation with the beautiful park right across the road here. But this is a different kind of a park. So we have recommendations in there for your operational plan. Oh, keep going?
Yeah,
Okay.
still you.
Oh, keep going. All right. So what we're recommending is a simple action plan, starting with the first year, that you formalize the partnerships through the 2 studies that can be funded with state funding, and that you take a pilot, one pilot signature event a year. That's about what your capacity is, but that signature event could be a very cool thing to do. So we're just asking for one signature event. And that you form the alliance, which we're calling an implementation team, to make sure that this keeps going, that it just doesn't become a document to sit on a shelf and say, hey, that's really nice, but you know, keep it going, but we're really not going to do anything. So that implementation team will help you move forward.
That's it.
Is that,
Yeah, that was the last
Okay.
slide.
okay.
So I guess open it up for questions or?
Open it up to questions from the board.
9:30.
Yeah, question I have, you had mentioned that one of the things we should consider doing, applying for some grant monies that are basically low or no match type situations. Have you identified what those opportunities are in this plan somewhere?
Yes.
They're in there?
Yes, we have. Yes.
Okay.
Before we made that recommendation, we coordinated with our advisory committee to make sure that that was making sense to them. So that's the one we're recommending can be done tomorrow if you like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You ready to do that tomorrow, Mark?
Not tomorrow.
How about you, Brandy? I'm off tomorrow. How about Monday? Questions? Thoughts?
So I am pleased to hear that you're really recognizing some of the historical significance of this park, and I think that your approach in terms of doing this incrementally, if you will, to develop it, yet give time for camp security to continue to do their work, I think is very good. Do you, based on your experience and knowing now your familiarity with the park, do you see that anything in this comprehensive plan that you have laid out could conflict with the future development as a national or international resource?
No, I think that the intention here is that it goes back to that sort of light touch. There's some things that we're recommending that would be physical improvements on the site, but we also speak to how you could do those in a way that you're kind of ensuring you're doing no harm to any kind of aspect of a historic resource. And, I think advancing more and carefully thought out public utilization of the site will actually grow the appreciation for the significance of the site. Also will greatly facilitate supporting Friends of Camp Security in the work that they're doing, because it'll be, frankly, a bit of a better visitor experience than, an agricultural field to bring people out to. So I think the potential exists, even certainly as you implement this plan, that the plan could be, the park itself could change in terms of its designation or, how it's, viewed in terms of, does it become part of a state park system or something, and we're not we're not at this time advocating for that. We're working under the assumption that this will be a township-owned park. But, you know, the site has the level of historic significance that you could certainly make a justification that it could fit into a park system of a higher sort of nature in terms of, you know, ownership and operation and interpretation. So the bottom line is everything that we're doing is consistent with that idea. So you would not be undermining the historic integrity of the park with the improvements that we're proposing.
All right, thank you.
Bob, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that the committee brought up when we were discussing this was renaming the entire area. And I like the idea that the 11 acres is the Camp Security Park because it is a park. It functions as a park. But I like one of the suggestions was the Camp Security Heritage Area for the entire 173 acres. And to me, that makes a lot of sense and really designates what it is rather than a park. A park, people think of tennis courts and volleyball courts and, you know.
And just the words, you know, camp security as a starting point can be confusing to a lot of folks if they're not familiar with what it is. So that's why we include in here an initiative to really think through how it is kind of named, presented, and even like kind of branded in a way. So there's a distinction of like the historic significance and the activities that happen potentially in different areas of the overall site.
My only other comment was there was an awful lot of open conversation on the committee about what will work and what won't work there, and took into consideration all of the neighbors of the property and how this property development affects them. So it was discussed at length.
So a question that I have is, you mentioned that this might be eligible for a higher level of attention.
Yeah.
Have you worked with any that would be a partnership between, say, a township and the state or the federal government or all three?
I mean, we certainly talked about that at the committee level, but I don't know, Ann, if you want to.
We did, just so you know, Sean and I both worked with the National Park Service. So we know what it takes to make a site, a national site. We also work with DCNR a lot. DCNR is very interested in this site. They have actually been participating in our committee meetings. So we looked at what those mean, and in your area, there are examples of the York Heritage Area. So you do have some precedent projects here. Right now, our start with the light touch is really for the township to support it and see how it grows over time, not to try to bite something off of making this a state or national park right now.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just interested in what that opportunity looks like and how much funding we could get out of the state government to help support the
Well, right now, you're the
heritage
only
area.
level of government working. There's no state budget, the federal bucket is closed. So this meeting is really very important.
Yeah, I think we were sort of operating under the principle that because of the uniqueness of the site, the township would potentially be eligible for more funding than just a pure recreation facility. And there might be greater success of the township pursuing that fund and continuing to own the property than trying to like pursue a notion of transferring it, especially in the light of what's going on kind of fiscally at the state and federal level. You know, a federal process, and we have been involved in actually adding land to a national park that literally requires an act of Congress. And it is a very, very time-consuming and lengthy.
I'm not suggesting we
Yeah,
give this
I'm
up.
just
I'm
making
just
sure
looking
everybody
for
aware.
funding and support.
Yeah.
What we missed in this is the county. The county, we had a work session with economic development. That was a critical work session. And this park has important implications for tourism and economic development. So there's funding available that supports that. Your hotel tax, the Visitors Bureau. If we can package this, and that would be something in advancing our recommendations about an interpretive plan that would address economic development as part of it, is that if this site gets packaged as part of how historic this county is, you'll be putting heads in beds, that's what tourism wants. So it does have very strong economic development potential. I'd be really interested in working on that.
And when we had that meeting, I think the key thing is this is part of the bigger story of what, is being told with the Susquehanna Heritage Area and what the county's doing. We don't think it's ever going to be a situation where we're going to have enormous amounts of people come to the site. It's going to be an opportunity on a regular basis where, people are coming to visit and learn about history, and this is one of the things that they'll come and see and just kind of experience on their own. And then we believe really it's through the programming opportunities that Friends of Camp Security can do with special kinds of events on the site that are organized around groups that really want to learn about the archaeology and the history and the verbal kind of the people part of the interpretation beyond just signs and things. That is a really, really unique opportunity that we don't come across that often.
Yeah, in terms of getting people away from screens, this is a site for it. We did the master plan for Washington Crossing State Park, and on Washington's birthday, we did a special signature event. That was our one event, Washington's birthday, and we dragged a bunch of middle schoolers out on a freezing cold February day who did not want to go, and then we couldn't get them to leave the park. And they became volunteers. They added on to their soccer interests because they learned about the history and the nature of the park and became one of the strongest volunteer groups that there are. So to get middle schoolers involved in something as exciting as this would be an important public service of this whole project.
Anything else? Don, anything from you? Okay, so at this point, I'd like to open up the floor to public comment. If there's anybody here tonight that would like to say anything about the presentation you've seen? Yes, please. Come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Eva Shipley. My address is 7 Washington Court, York, Pennsylvania, Spring-Hesbury Township. I wanted to say that I agree with one thing. I agree we should start small. And the baseline park improvements plan here does not look small. I went to all the previous meetings for this park, and I heard over and over again that people are concerned about the archaeology aspect of it, the wildlife aspect of it. Of course, encroachment on properties, I see that they have the trails going all along the properties instead of being concentrated more in the middle of the park. We have a serious wildlife problem in that area, and that park is the only place they have left to go. They've developed across from where you enter Wilshire Hills on Wilshire Drive. I don't know if you're familiar with that area there that's being currently developed. We have a lot more wildlife coming into the area now because that's no longer a home for them. And I wanted to also present another idea. I grew up for about 12 years in Brookfield Center, Connecticut. At the end of my street, just as now, there was a farm, a large farm. And it was passed down through the generations. It's a beautiful farm, has a pond and a windmill and trails, and there's some woodlands. The township bought that park, that farm, to be a park as well, open space, which is how this started out. You were buying this to preserve the open space. I spoke at that meeting because I told you this chance is never going to come again. Once it's developed, it's gone. What they did, they started very small, and it's worked out very well so far. They have trails going through their, what's now a park. It's called Happy Landings Park in Brookfield, Connecticut. And they have, the trails go through, the grasslands, they go through the woodlands, and volunteers mow it. Not the entire park, they mow the trails. It doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. It doesn't displace the wildlife. A lot of people can still go there to visit. In our case, it wouldn't be an impingement to the archaeology that's currently taking place there, because they're talking about putting some parking lots and pavilions and things of that nature. Once you've covered that over, the archaeology can't continue. I mean, there are literally like 200 and something graves on that property. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. And all the meetings that I've come to previously, there was a lot of, most people just wanted to leave this as open space with trails. That was the basic plan, the basic consensus that I saw. I don't know what the 770 people who responded to the survey want to do, but they didn't come to the meetings. Most of the meetings, people at the meetings when I came were a lot more opposed to developing this land than I am. I mean, I think it would be nice historically for especially school children to be able to come and enjoy the history of it and people from out of town. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, but I think we need to leave it open to a greater extent for the wildlife and for the archaeology, which is ongoing. We're not there yet. My husband grew up at the end of the street that borders on the park. And he found a lot of things growing up there, scattered throughout that region. I mean, it's been farmed for many, many, many years since the Revolutionary War. So a lot of things have been scattered about, but they have a long way to go, I think, in their archaeology. So I just wanted to just put that out there for you and let you know what other areas are doing. If you want to take a look online, there are many, many pictures. It's called Happy Landings Park in Brookfield, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to? Yes, please.
My name is V. Myers, and I'm at 3111 East Market Street. And I guess I wanted to voice my support for the master plan that I saw. And I like the fact that the trails are on the periphery of the park. I don't consider what I saw to be a ton of development personally. I think one of the reasons we're having wildlife go into neighborhoods and into roads is because there's not habitat. Open grass fields that are mowed is not adequate habitat. What I saw from the master plan was really exceptional habitat with meadow implementation and wetland conservation, which is really great. I actually feel like having trails on the periphery of these created habitats will actually help the wildlife concerns of the surrounding areas. So I thought it was a really well done plan, and I'm like super excited. I texted my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a 173-acre plan that's hopefully going to be approved. So I'm just voicing my support and my excitement. So thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Yes, sir, please.
I'm coughing, so I apologize. I have more questions for these guys. With the buffer, originally, Brad Kessler, 3684 Cheltenham.
Brad, so this is an opportunity for comment to the board
Okay.
on what you've heard. It's not a cross-examination of the.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Just to keep that clear. Thank you.
Originally, in one of the plans, there was like a 40-foot buffer they were going to put around all the outside of the area to shield the residents from the park, except for the side near our property. They're going right up against the creek, and they're going to build an actual overlook in one of the phases. And we have enough trouble with garbage coming in from Stonewood Road, and even our local neighbors. They walk across your water drainage pit and just to dump their grass clippings and pumpkins and Christmas trees. Dwayne Sawyer, I think it is aware of it. He's seen it before. That was one thing. The wildlife, we've talked to these people before, and they say about the snags. Well, the snags are good for owls. Yes, snag is a dead tree. And then they talk about the wildlife and the deer, and that they actually said that the deer were part of the problem. and that has to do with the invasive plant life. So why don't we just try to get rid of the invasive plant life? Because then the deer won't eat the natural habitat, and then there's nothing there. The invasive wildlife or plant life takes over. So that's one thing to think about. That has nothing to do with that. And then the heritage area, naming it the heritage area, that's a great idea. But I think in one of the plans, they actually have basketball courts and stuff set up over on the road near the church. So just look at the plans. There are some things in there that weren't mentioned today. And I may be incorrect. They had two separate plans. One plan had a path going across the Ryan's farmhouse lane. So it was good to see that that plan wasn't put up on the board. And we've just had bad experiences with projects that involved our property, being told one thing and then something else happens. So just be aware of that. So thank you, guys. And
Thank you.
Oh, Brad Kessler.
Anybody else that would like to address the board? Sure. Tell you what, let's let the other gentleman have an opportunity to speak, and then if there's time left, we'll.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pastor Joshua Conlon. I pastor the Good News Free Baptist Church that will literally be butting up against the property for the security park. Just a couple of questions for you gentlemen. If you may or may not know, the property values. How will this affect the property values of the surrounding areas, like our church, for instance, being right up against it? Will it, increase it, decrease it? And then I noticed on the slides it said that there's been a partial grant given. Well, where is the rest of the money going to come from? Does that mean there's going to be property tax increases to get the rest of the funding for this? Just a couple things, questions. I've been into several of the meetings. We're concerned. One of the plans actually had them putting a playground at the end of our parking lot, and it's one of those things we were kind of hesitant with seeing that. You know how people can be so happy these days, especially against churches. So just those questions about the property values and the property taxes. I don't know if that has come up in any of the other meetings with you gentlemen or not. So I don't know if y'all can answer that for us this evening.
So this was a presentation. We're not taking any action on it this evening.
Okay.
So there is going to be plenty of discussion before anything happens.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Last name is Conlon, C-O-N-L-O-N. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board that hasn't yet, including a couple of people online? If anybody would like to raise their hand to address the board. Yes, please. Oh, well, go ahead. We have two more. Yeah.
Just real quick, I just wanted to say about the trails going around the borders. It's not just about the houses. Those are hedgerows, and a lot of animals live in the hedgerows. That's their habitat. The hedgerows have been eroded since they've been farming, not recently, but in previous years there was a lot of farming there. Even after you purchased the property, they were going around with trucks and slamming the trees, even live trees, to get them to fall over so they'd have more area to farm. And the hedgerows have eroded seriously. We really need to build that back up. That's one of the first things I think that's really important to do, because you used to have a lot of wild game here. You had partridges, and you had what are those other birds you had here? A lot of them. Pheasants and quail. When I first moved here in 1985, there were so many there. My mother-in-law lived on one of the adjacent streets. And I think we have a serious problem with the hedgerows. That would be nice if we could work on that too.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know why the perimeter could be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Hi, Rachel Fry, 2035 Eastern Boulevard. My parents live across the street from the proposed stuff, so that's why I'm here. But because I've been a Spring and Sperry Township resident for 45 years, I kind of am concerned with the electric, sewer, all of that. I just like to get that on your radar when you're thinking about this. How much will you need to dig up to get that stuff in the area of the park? And the parking lots themselves. From the pictures, I wasn't sure where exit 15 and the main entrance 13 were located. And the Welcome Plaza, I don't know if that's, I'm picturing like a building, like when you go to a park and there's like the building with things you can purchase inside. I'm not sure if that's what that is. I'm okay with what the first comments were with trails and things, but building even pavilions and such, it's a lot. When I hear the word tourism, that kind of scares me because it's such a residential area. And we do have this wonderful park across the street. Not that it's, historic or anything, but just to keep some of those things in mind. I'm a big, positive. I love the wildlife too, the deer. We live in Fayfield, so we've had deer coming into our neighborhood because there's just not many places for them to go. I know they used to be back up here. The roads, Pleasant Valley and stuff, where the new residential areas are and stuff. I don't want to see deer laying along the roads dead. I like to see them along the street or in the fields with their young and everything. So just those things to think about. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? All right, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regularly scheduled Township Board of Supervisors meeting. Our first item this evening will be a pledge to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There have been no executive sessions since our last meeting. So at this point, we come to communication from citizens. As many of you may or may not be aware, at the last minute this morning, the school district pulled the intermediate school discussion. So that will not happen under subdivisions and land development. So I would like to just read something for everyone and might have a couple of comments myself to add. As you might be aware, the York Suburban School District requested to be on the township agenda for tonight's meeting, and that request was accommodated. Our engineer and staff has met with the school district's professional advisors on multiple occasions. On October 21st, 2025 at 4 p.m., the school district sent an email addressed to York Suburban families, staff, and community members. Presumably, the email was sent to the people identified in the email. The township was not a recipient of the email, but a resident brought the email to the township's attention on October 22nd. On October 23rd, 2025, at 9:22 a.m., the school district's professional advisors notified the township that the school district was requesting to be removed from tonight's agenda and to be placed on the November agenda. I will also interject here that that was after the township, knowing that that was in the note that went out to the community, called and emailed the school district for clarification before that response was generated. The township will not respond to all of the comments made in the school district's October 21, 2025 email. However, it's important to note the following for the general public's consumption. The Township's Planning Commission makes recommendations, meaning the Planning Commission has no authority to approve or disapprove any plan. The Board of Supervisors approves or disapproves plans. The township's engineer reviews plans submitted by the school district. The engineer issues a review letter and provides a copy of the review letter to the school district's professional consultants. The school district's professional consultants know exactly what they need to accomplish to satisfy the township's ordinance. This exact same process is carried out for every project and is not unique to the school district. I will also interject here that this building you're sitting in right now and this entire complex went through exactly the same planning process. There were 2 variances granted in this case. One was preliminary final plan to be combined into one, which is something that we typically grant to an applicant if they request. The other is plan size drawings. That is it. There were no variances granted for any other purpose. We hold everyone to the same very strict standards for this township. The township is not surprised the school district or changing its position regarding that doesn't read quite right. The township is not surprised the school district is changing its position regarding the ordinance. I believe. Simply, the township is treating the school district the same as it would any other applicant, no better, no worse. The township remains committed to treat the school district the same as it would any other applicant, and will not show favoritism for or against any applicant, to include the school district. If or when anyone suggests that the school district is receiving better or worse treatment by the township, those suggestions, implications, or statements would be misplaced. If or when the school district is on the November agenda, the Board of Supervisors will address the school district's submittal at that time. So I wanted to read that for anybody here who is here for the school plan to understand exactly where we stand with that school plan for this evening. It will not be on the agenda this evening. With that, I'd like to open up the floor to any comments that the citizens have, and if you would like to raise your hand, come forward and address the board, please do so now. And if you are on Zoom, please click the raise hand button to address the board. Mr. Shank, please. State your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Bill Shank. I live at 4030 Old Orchard Road, Spring Ferry Township. Thanks for accommodating me this evening. 2 things. Well, 3. One, I was very pleased during the presentation for the camp security project to note the involvement that is suggested for the Friends Group. I'm very active in a state park that has an active Friends Group, and the Friends Group is what's really responsible for the programming and the historical stuff. I know the township would have an interest, but you don't have the resources, and I don't want to assume the enthusiasm, but you'll never replicate the enthusiasm of a strong Friends Group. So I'm very pleased to see that they were included. Secondly, because I'm in the central school district side of the township, I haven't been following the suburban plan that much, but your comments just now were excellent and I think appropriate.
Thank you.
Compliment you there. And this one relates to nothing. Way off topic. I subscribe to Sirius satellite radio, and I enjoy that as I travel around the township. I've noticed in the last few months that at every major intersection, it doesn't work. I don't know if any of you else have experienced that issue. I questioned some people who would know something about that, and I was advised that at some point the signals were switched from a camera-based system to a radar-based system, and that perhaps the radar frequency is interfering with the satellite radio. Very trivial, and certainly not anything worthy of your time or expense. I'm not expecting that. Just throwing it out there. If it's just a matter of turning it up, I have no idea. I don't know if you're all aware of that little issue or not.
I was not.
I was not, but that is correct. A lot of our intersections have radar. That's the white rectangle that you
I
see
can
on the
give you a
poles.
list of the exact, I've noticed the pattern now, the exact intersections. You get so close, it just cuts out, so.
But I was not aware that that was a thing.
It-
But I can certainly have a conversation
If
with
any of
Bill.
you have satellite radio, just go to any of the major intersections and you'll,
Bill, it
go to Mount
happens-
Zion and Market
It
Street.
happens to me at every intersection, but I assume
You
it's
did-
because I'm driving a 21-year-old car.
You didn't make the association, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Pardon me?
Pick it up after the intersection?
Oh, yeah. Like, I'll give you an example. Market and Mount Zion, as I approach from the south, it'll cut out about, maybe 300 feet before the intersection. If I make a left turn like I'm heading towards Home Depot, that's something I do a lot. By the time I'm about down where the old GTE facility is, you know what I'm talking about? Then it's back on again. But then when you get to the next intersection, it's gone. So it's definitely something, I believe that there is a connection. Again, in your world, it's not a big deal. I'm not suggesting it at all, but I thought it was kind of an interesting thing.
It is an interesting thing, and I wonder if there are different frequency alternatives for that could change things.
We'll definitely look into it, but Mount Zion and Market does not have radar.
Well, that's interesting.
But Eastern Boulevard.
Eastern does, for
Eastern
sure.
Boulevard and Edgewood has it, but Mill Street and Market does not have it. So it's interesting. But I'll definitely talk to our signal control or maintenance company to see if.
But it is only at intersections where it's happening. So, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, please.
Danny Barker, 740 Sundale Drive in the township. Been watching you guys attending, trying to take an interest and understand how this is done for about a year. I mentioned before, I'm a guy with steeped in military corporate background. Really appreciate methodical approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then we will move on. Next, we have our engineering reports.
Good evening, gentlemen. I have no updates to the report that was submitted. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Diana? Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
Just two quick updates that we got some information on. First, I think you saw from my engineer's report that on Eastern Boulevard and Haynes Road, that developer is putting their sidewalk in as we had requested. And during that demolition, they discovered there was an inlet that was falling in, and so we've wrapped up our plan, and I'm sure Public Works will have something to repair that thing at some point. And then that pipe project, we had Northern Way, and we had to go through a bunch of hydraulics. We had that permit probably a year ago. And then I told you that we had to do a bat survey for Hawthorne and Wilshire, because we have to replace both the pipe under the road and the sanitary sewer. Apparently got a bow in it, so they're going to replace some of that from manhole to manhole. But yesterday at like 4 o'clock, in my inbox, the permit showed up miraculously. So I guess the bat survey was the final step that they needed, and we can now proceed. The target is here that we would have one contractor do all 3 projects. So.
Any questions for our engineer?
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Next, we have our consent agenda, items 5A through D. Is there anything that anyone would like to have removed for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through D as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next we have bids, proposals, contracts, and agreements. First one is authorization to award bid to CM High Incorporated for 2025 Market Street Traffic Signal Improvements Project in an amount not to exceed $566,500, hopefully fixing the satellite radio issue.
I don't know that it's going to do that, but this is equipment replacements, not total reconstruction of each intersection, but it's the intersections from North Hills Road to Mill Street to upgrade them to current standards. And this was the Green Light Go grant that we received that covers the majority of this price.
Mr. Chairman, I move their authorization to award bid to CM High Inc. for 2025 Market Street Traffic Signal Improvements Project in an amount not to exceed $566,500.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have acceptance of electricity rate of, what's that, 6.596 cents per kilowatt hour with NRG Direct Energy commencing in December 2026 through November 2030.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great job, Mark.
Yes. Thank you. Great job.
Next, we have subdivision and land development. As I mentioned, the York Middle Intermediate School is removed from the agenda. We have land development 2023-0003, revised proposed building, parking lot, and testing area expansion for Molimo LLC, 1410 Eden Road.
Good evening to the Board of Supervisors. This is a plan that you had seen without the building expansion, and you previously approved that in July of 2024. However, the applicant has decided that they now want to construct the 20,000 foot building expansion, and so that was revised from what you had originally approved. And we do have the applicant's consultant here, as well as the applicant is available to Mr. Bisco. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the consultant, Mr. Neil Metzger, with Site Design Concept, and they can review the plan with his supervisors. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Neil Metzger, Site Design Concepts. As Mr. Heilman has stated, I believe we were here and got a conditional approval last July 2024, and then I believe there were some notes that were before the board in January or February. But in the meantime, the needs at this facility have changed, and so this plan, the main change, and I'll try to switch the sheet here. Whoops, all right, there it goes. The biggest change was actually putting where there was a gravel test area on both the west, north, and south ends of the existing building. We have now added a proposed building addition that's 20,000 square feet where there used to be a proposed gravel test area. They need to get more climate-controlled areas to test their products. So, and with the way their business has been growing, they've determined that to be a need. So, the main change between the plan you saw and the plan that's here before you this evening is that 20,000 square foot addition on the US 30 side of the existing building, and then we're adding an additional loading dock that's 48-inch dock height back here in the southwest corner of the proposed building addition. And we are providing asphalt pavement around the entire proposed, existing and proposed building. And obviously, the proposed parking expansion really hasn't changed. We're extending the existing parking area and not putting down asphalt pavement to the south, which was part of the prior presentation. However, now we obviously have an asphalt access drive that allows vehicles to traverse and drive around the complete building once it's expanded. Stormwater management hasn't changed. I believe the summary that Mr. Holloman provided was pretty clear and described exactly what's being proposed. We are requesting the same waivers that were before the board previously, with the caveat that we're removing the one waiver that requested relief from not providing a site lighting photometric plan. That has been provided to both Mr. Holloman and to the township engineer. We think it complies with the ordinance, so we're willing, that waiver is no longer part of the proposed project. The other 7 are still being requested this evening. And as Mr. Holloman stated, Mr. Richard Bisco is here, the president of Multnomah, as well as I'm here to answer any questions you may have regarding this project.
Questions from anybody? I can't pull mine up, so I can't see what I was thinking about.
So I think there's a waiver for, Randall, this is for you. I think there's a waiver for traffic study citing that there's no additional space, but yet they are adding additional space. So is the justification for the waiver consistent with this plan?
I can answer that. Yes, that will need to be updated, assuming the board is still in agreement that a traffic study will end up not resulting in really any type of proposed improvements based on Eden Road and the traffic and obviously US 30 and the nature of this particular business. So yes, we will have to update the justification. And actually, I believe the latest plans that were submitted, we have not revised them since we submitted prior to the Planning Commission, but the photometric waiver will be removed and we will add additional justification for that waiver. Essentially, the employee count's really not going to go up significantly. We're just going to put a building where they were going to do testing in that gravel area previously. And based on the prior studies of this whole area and Eden Road not being a significant traffic road, that in the end, it's really just going to be money that's, I would say, not well spent. So we will fix that as part of the final plan that gets signed by the supervisors to state something similar to what I just said.
I'm still confused. So we waived the traffic study because there was no additional construction. Now there is additional construction, but you're saying that we still don't need a traffic study because there won't be many more employees and you don't think it's going to affect this road, but that's what a traffic study would show, I believe.
That is a correct statement.
If I could answer that. Because we just had that discussion in the Planning Commission, and what you previously approved was an outdoor testing area.
Yes.
And so essentially what was approved previously was an outdoor testing area that we are just now covering it. It's not, so we're not increasing the amount of testing space that we otherwise would have here. We're just simply covering it. So it's not necessarily attracting or requiring additional employees into the space.
What was the use of the site before you purchased it?
It was 84 Lumber Building.
So you purchased a building that had gone through all of the rigors of the the ordinances that we have here. I guess my concern is, let's say now somebody else purchases that from you at some point in the future because you're no longer in the business that you're in, and they decide to put a whole bunch of people in that building. That's the purpose that an enclosed space triggers a certain thing to happen, which in this case would be the traffic study. It isn't that you don't have more people working for you. The question is, can you have more people working for you, or could there be more people because of that space at some point in the future? And I would argue that that answer is yes. So you might say, well, it was just a gravel area that we were doing testing in, we're still just doing testing, but now it's a building. Well, now it's a building. What could happen? That's what triggers the traffic study. 20,000 square feet of building space.
I can't speak to that. All I can speak to the fact that it's a shell of a building without any office space, any restroom facilities, any kitchen space. It's not housing additional employees. I can't speak to what a future tenant or a future owner might do. At that point in time, I assume they're requiring building permits and things like that, if they were ever going to outfit this area for putting employees in offices and such. At that point in time, it could be addressed. So I can't speak to what a future person.
Building permits, in my understanding, John, don't trigger traffic studies?
No, they do not.
Now, typically, obviously, there's parking evaluations that go, obviously, if there's a tenant and the use of that site were to change, where there's a significant higher employee count based on the zoning ordinance, I know there is a zoning review as part of, I think, an occupancy permit. So, yes, if there was a significant modification of the use based on some future owner, obviously, I don't think they'd have adequate, they'd have adequate parking.
I think you're missing my point.
Okay. Yes, we can do, I mean, obviously, a study can be done. Do I think it's going to result in any probably required improvements? I mean, my opinion is probably not, but until you do it, I guess.
So, just to be fair and to be clear, John, what is does it change the amount of people or trips that go into the study based on the size of the building or their intended use of the building?
When we reviewed it as a parking lot,
It was a testing area.
it was a testing area. The ITE bases their total trips on building square footage, and you classify it as whatever that square footage. And when, we had talked early on about a trip generation, but, you plug in 0, you get a 0. Now, it's different, and you will get an increase in traffic, and, will there be, there may be an increase in traffic, and I'm, at that point, I'm not sure what it'll tell you, but it'll tell you that, hey, there's a failing intersection here. I'm not sure there'll be any improvements warranted, but it at least would give you a pulse as to, the traffic on Eden Road, because there's a warehouse back there now. There's some residential development back there. Harley primarily uses the rear of their facility to come in and out. And I know it's been studied frequently, but it's been maybe a decade since, that area has been looked at, particularly Eden Road. So.
This is just my comments. I'm one of 5. Don, anything from you?
I just want to clarify something that was said by the engineer in the beginning of this conversation, which was that essentially the modifications and waivers that we're looking at are exactly the same as what we looked at the last time this plan was in front of us, and that's how the traffic study justification just got copied over. So is that a correct assumption that all of these were just copied over from before?
Yes, and actually I happened to be going down through things the other day, and I saw that wording 100% needs to be modified. In terms of the justification for that waiver request, that it states there is no additional building being constructed, and that is not correct. But I did happen to see that. Now, we are requesting the same waivers, other than eliminating the one that was denied last July.
Right, but it was, if I may, it was adjudicated at the Planning Commission, not based on that, but based on this discussion of it is essentially covering an area that was already previously approved under the testing, as a testing area. So that was adjudicated.
Adjudicated.
It was discussed not under the context.
I'm sorry, the connection's great here, but when you say covering an area, you're talking about covering an area with a roof and walls, correct?
Yes. It's just this previous area, you guys go through a lot of plans, so you probably don't remember, is that this was an asphalt area that was intended for additional testing space, because there's a lot of different tests that we do there, and we've just determined that the needs would be better suited at this point, a year and a half, well, actually 3 years later from the start of this, that it would be covered and protected rather than be out in the open. What I meant by adjudicated just meant that the Planning Commission didn't hear the argument based on there's no building and just pass it through, because that's what we did previously. We had the specific discussion that there was a building going up. That's what I meant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just recommended that waiver be granted, but obviously they only recommend in terms of the Planning Commission.
Any other questions? Discussion.
I'm happy to support the traffic study waiver in this particular case, subject to that revised language for the justification. I'll put that out there.
Anyone else?
Mark, you always talk about unintended consequences. So the next applicant that comes in wanting to expand his building by 20,000 square feet says, we granted a waiver on this one.
Well, every site is unique, Mr.
You're right.
Cox.
But yes, Mr. Worcester is correct also. Every single parcel of real estate is its own individual
Trying to be difficult.
parcel. I know, and that's why I'm torn. I know that that site has changed uses, has changed purposes, and any site can. So I guess, John, from your experience with the Planning Commission, their discussion, and just in general, what does that size differential do to us? Do you have any figures in front of you for what that might do for trip generation?
I may have run it through the manual, and of course, this is a little bit of a unique business in that they test equipment. You know, normally, so what do you put it as? Like, IT has houses, apartments, manufacturing facilities. It's certainly not that. Warehouse, it's not that. It doesn't it's a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, I'm just saying. But I would agree with what you said before. It's, that you're doubling the size of the building, and it could have that demand on it if you try to fit it into one of those categories. So I don't have a real good understanding. I understand their business because I've visited the architectural testing, which was their previous area, and they employ a lot of people, and they need a lot of room to test things. But I don't have a real good understanding of how much traffic they would generate if they run one shift, two shifts, or three shifts. So I don't, as their business continues to grow and they're successful, they could create more traffic. But I'm not sure. When they do the traffic study, they'll probably try to fit it into a category that's listed. They'll crank the numbers through and they'll say, okay, it's going to generate, 80 more trips in a day. So to answer, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I don't know the answer is the honest opinion, because I'm not sure what box you would put this testing company. Is it an office? No, it's not an office, because an office, you have lots of people working in an office. It's less intense than an office because it's got equipment that they're testing and things of that. So I don't have a number for you that I could give you.
One more comment that the Planning Commission, because again, we had a pretty good discussion about it, that they pointed, that one of the commissioners pointed out is the fact that this was 84 lumber, that necessitated significant truck traffic for their deliveries of everything you can imagine in an 84 lumber building, and obviously consumer traffic day in and day out, all day long at the site. We pretty much are a facility where our employees come in, we do our job, and we leave one time. There's only so many parking spaces here, so that's the amount of traffic we're going to get. And so that the kind of thought process that the commissioners wrap their heads around, and I just wanted to kind of bring it into this conversation, was that the previous building was obviously a much more traffic space.
Had you ever been to 84 lumber?
I have been multiple times, actually.
To characterize it as a highly trafficked space, I don't know would be exactly accurate, but probably
compared
the
to the traffic
reason
that we end
you
up
have
dealing
the
with.
building now.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to, that seemed to be a point of discussion of interest with the commissioner, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Go ahead, Charles.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to Plan LD 2023-003, I recommend approval of the following waivers. Section 289-10 preliminary plan, Section 289-21 traffic study, Section 289-32A sidewalks on both sides of all streets, Section 289-35A landscaping buffer yards, Section 289-36 streetlights to be installed, Section 281-15B1J side slopes, and I guess that doesn't have a section. Construction and material manual sheet 02525-2 curb detail.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You have 4 ayes. Passes.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to LD 2023-0003, recommend approval following, subject to the following conditions. Section 289-38, the previous bonding improvement guarantee should be modified to account for the revised plan submitted for the proposed improvements. Section 325-16N, parking lot interior landscaping. Section 325-71I, development standards. The applicant should add land development note saying no parking, storage, or traversing of tractor trailers on the proposed gravel test area is allowed. And number 5, revised commentary as to justification of the waiver of the traffic study. Waiver.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimous.
Thank you very much, Board.
Thank you. Any communication from supervisors? Solicitors report.
You have a copy of my report. No further comments unless there's any questions from any of the board members.
Oh, now it opens. So I did have a thought. Are we at a position where the residents up along near the Huters property are no longer complaining about cars parking in front of their houses and on their lawns?
We're not. The business keeps having events that are against the ordinance.
And they're willing to pay the $400 fine with no consequences.
Correct. So we just were awarded a judgment from the district magistrate for their events in 2024. So they held 2 events, I believe, so far in 25, so I'm sure that'll go down the same path with the same result. So the solicitor and I have been discussing what do we do to be a little more firm, what's available to us to be more firm. Because the only thing we have now is the ordinance violation.
So they're paying the violations? They're paying for the fines that they get?
Yes.
They've paid 1 violation.
So what did we get from the magistrate then?
What was it? 4?
It was close to $500.
Close to $500, yes. Yes.
So a $500 judgment for a fine that he didn't just pay, or that the applicant didn't, or the applicant, the business did not pay yet. Is that correct?
No, it's paid.
So what's the judgment then we got from the magistrate?
So when we go to the magistrate, if the letter goes out, they have 30 days to appeal to the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board is actually the body that can adjudicate whether the fine is appropriate or not. That did not happen. So when we go to the magistrate only sets the fine, and you can go up to a maximum of $500
Okay.
per violation per day. And you have to go in and we justify why we're asking for a certain amount of money. The magistrate sent the fine out, and the owner of Hoyters paid the fine.
Okay, all right, okay. So we have to go through the magistrate just to get a
Just to
fine
set
level,
the-
to set a fine level.
Set a fine, that's
Okay.
right. Yep.
But heretofore, we've gone through this process how many times?
That was the first
That was
go
the
around
first
for the 2024 events. So now there's been subsequent letters sent out, Randall?
Yes, he has
Okay.
received letters for the 2 events he did in 2025.
So now we have 2 additional notices of violation. Once the 30 days is up on that, then we will go back to the magistrate.
Get 2 more fines of $500 each is what we're hoping.
Yes.
All right, so
Correct.
it's a $500 fee essentially to run it, but we have to run through this procedure every single.
However he chooses to, or however the owner chooses to assess that payment and pass it through, or shoulder the burden on their own, it's up to me. But yes, we have talked about other avenues of enforcement that may be on the table that I'm choosing not to talk about here.
I encourage you to consider.
Who sets the $500 maximum?
Your ordinance has that.
Our ordinance?
Yes.
Our ordinance.
So we can change that for the future.
If that's the will of the board, you can certainly amend your ordinance.
Is there any state statute that says you can't go above a certain amount?
I will confirm that.
I encourage you
Seems to me like $500 is not a deterrent.
I, for one, would encourage you to pursue those other options. Those residents need some relief.
That's all I had. Mark, manager's report.
Nothing to add.
Any questions for the manager? All right, ordinances and resolutions. So I would like to pull forward a new business item to be number 2 in this list. With so the first one is resolution number 2025-53. Actually, I would like to move the other one up first. If that's okay with the board.
I understand what you're doing. Yep.
Okay. So, first under new business is acknowledge receipt of letter of resignation from Sherry Nichols from the Parks and Recreation Board. And if I can pull it up here, which it doesn't appear that I can.
Here's the hard copy.
It's a resolution. It's not the letter, though. Where is it?
Not the, yeah, that's the resolution. Oh, I got it. It took a while. So, and it was addressed to me, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from my position as chairman of the Springersbury Township Recreation Board effective October 15th, 2025. It has been my great pleasure to serve the township as a recreation board member for 35 years since 1990. I am moving to Austin, Texas to be with my 2.5-year-old granddaughter and family. I've been honored to witness and contribute to the incredible development of our township's recreation program. Our township leadership has continued to make recreation an integral priority and has helped make Springersbury a wonderful place to raise a family and serve the recreational needs of residents of all ages. I'm confident that our township's recreation program will continue to grow under our recreation director, Brandy Shope. She came to the job with advanced education that helps her navigate her job and continues to expand her knowledge to keep up with the latest technology. Great outreach to other recreation organizations within our county has also expanded recreational possibilities to another level. With her leadership and the backing of the Springersbury Township Board, Brandy can continue to impress. It has been a source of pride to have been part of dedicated teams of Recreation Board members. I wish the board and the entire Springersbury community all the best for the future. Sincerely, Sherry Nichols. I want to read that to give everybody kind of an understanding of the involvement that she's had and for the length of time. And I wanted to read that and ask for a motion to accept the resignation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, I would like to read resolution number 2025-53, recognition of Sherry Nichols. Whereas we honor an individual whose commitment to Springersbury Township has shaped the very landscape of our community for more than 3 decades, we extend our deepest gratitude to Sherry Nichols, Chairwoman of the Parks and Recreation Board, for her unwavering service since 1989. And whereas Sherry's tenure is marked by monumental achievements that have enhanced the quality of life for every resident, her dedication helped bring to life the beloved Creative Playground in 1990, a landmark that sparked imagination for a generation of children. Her strategic vision was pivotal in crafting the comprehensive recreation open space plan in 2008, a document that continues to guide the sustainable growth of our recreational assets. And whereas most visibly, Sherry has been a driving force behind the transformation of our public spaces, including the vital redesigns of Castle Park, Penn Oaks Park, and Augustus H. Schaefer Memorial Park. These efforts are not just about new swing sets and trails, they're about creating essential community hubs. Beyond the boardroom, countless hours of volunteering at township events underscore a personal commitment that goes above and beyond. And whereas recreation is far more than leisure, it is the vital fiber of a cohesive community. Our parks and programs are the few places where neighbors of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities naturally converge. A child's squeal on a new slide, a friendly face passing on a walking trail, a shared victory of a local sports team. This public infrastructure is where connections are forged, health is nurtured, and a collective sense of belonging is strengthened. And whereas Sherry Nichols has done more than serve on a board, she has tirelessly worked to build places where our community can gather, play, and grow together. Her legacy is etched into the green spaces of Springersbury Township, and for her extraordinary service, passion, and profound impact, we offer our most sincere and heartfelt recognition. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Springersbury Township, on behalf of all the citizens of Springersbury Township, acknowledge sincere gratitude and appreciation to Sherry Nichols for her years of dedication and public service. The board wishes Sherry and her family much happiness and good health. Adopted, hopefully, this 23rd day of October 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of Resolution 2025-53, the recognition of Sherry Nichols and her service to the Springersbury Township Recreation Board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we can pass this around for signature later then. All right, then we have resolution number 2025-54, authorization to apply for a Category 4 facilities statewide share assessment grant for Rockburn Park playground equipment in the amount of $82,474. It's kind of fitting that all of these resolutions now are to go for grants for park space, right?
Mr. Chairman, I move for adoption of Resolution number 2025-54, authorization to apply for Category 4 facilities statewide share assessment grant for Rockburn Park playground equipment in the amount of $82,474.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution 2025-55, authorization to apply for another Category 4 facility statewide share assessment grant for Harvest Hill and Augustus Schaefer Park shade units in the amount of $22,908.
I'll move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-55 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And And finally, we have Resolution 2025-56, authorization to apply for Category 4 Facility Statewide Share Assessment Grant for purchase of a skid steer in the amount of $129,700.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of resolution number 2025-56 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything that anybody would like to discuss under old business?
This time.
All right. With that, we are at the end of our agenda. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.